Have you ever wondered how a sales script is created for the best effect ever, which would be to make a sale? Well, in this video, I'm going to dissect an exact sales script that I use almost every day in my business, and I want to share that directly with you. Hey, it's Tom Jackobs. Thanks for stopping by. This channel is specifically for solo practitioners, solopreneurs who want to increase their business, have more impact, make more sales, and generally improve the conversion of leads into clients. So if that's you, stick around. You're going to love this video because I'm dissecting an actual sales script that I use in my business to get more clients. And when you model something like this, obviously don't copy it because it's not your business. But when you model something like this, you will have a consistent sales flow and consistent conversation with prospects that will lead to a consistent outcome, which is making the sale. So let's dive right into this sales script. And I'm going to just share my screen here. And so you can see exactly what we do here, how I do it. So right here, we have this great sales script and it's broken down into the different elements. So the very first thing is, of course, rapport building. And if you haven't checked out that video that I did on rapport building, make sure you check that out as well. But generally it's rapport building. You want to do some discovery, find out a little bit about what their problems are. You want to build up those problems and then present your solution. And then at the end is ask for the sale. So this is typically how I organize things to get the right answers to the questions that will lead to a sale. So first of all, I'm calling you back because you filled out a request for an impact call with us. Does that ring a bell? So this is critical to refresh, especially when we're doing calls. You want to refresh their memory as to why you're calling them. Like a lot of people will forget that they filled out a form online. They just won't know. So this is critical to leading up to that. Well, great. Does that ring a bell? Yeah. Awesome. And then the very first question I always like to ask is, what inspired you to book this call with me today? What's going on in your business that you wanted to chat about sales or making phone calls or whatever it is, or getting healthy and fit? So that's always a really important question because it gets people to think about, well, why did I do this in the first place? And then you can have a really good conversation about that. And one thing that I recommend, and I train my own salespeople as well as the clients that hire me to help with their sales team, what I like to do here is drill further into the question. So it's not just you're going to go through and ask 20 questions with somebody and it feels like an interrogation, but rather you want to drill into a question and go deep rather than going wide with the question. The less questions that you ask can actually be a lot more impactful in the sales conversation than if you just ask a bunch of questions that are on your script. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Now, if you had no limitations, what would your practice look like 12 months from now? What would be your goals for you in terms of your clients, new clients? So these are two different questions. So it's always good to separate them. So the first is, if you had no limitations, what would your practice look like 12 months from now? So again, there's two aspects to the sales process. One is you got to paint what the promised land looks like, how great it's going to be once they implement your program. But you also need to remind them of the pain that they're in right now that they want to get out of. Us humans, we oftentimes will do more to get out of pain than we will to get to pleasure. So let me repeat that again. We as humans will do more to get out of pain than we will to ultimately get to pleasure. So it's this pushing out of pain and pulling towards pleasure. What that really means is you got to have both. You got to paint this picture of what it's going to be like to use your program and to get to the results that they want, but you also have to get them to admit that there's a problem now. So, and that's why in the problem building piece, I really like to drill into what the problem is. So who is following up on your leads now? Why is this a problem? What would you like them to do instead of calling leads? So this is one of those questions where, they may have staff that do some of the calling, but maybe they're not really effective at it. So what else could they do rather than calling their leads? And they're like, oh my gosh, they could help more patients. They could file better. They could clean the office, whatever it happens to be. But it's doing something of higher priority than making those phone calls, because not everybody likes to make phone calls and not everybody's very good at it. either, which is why I have a company that does it for people. And then once you understand what their problem is, now you can address it with your presentation. You can address how you're going to help them solve that problem. This is critical that you customize the presentation piece to what the problems are in the client's issues. So whatever their issues are, you want to address that in your presentation. And this is where a little bit of customization will come along, but you have your general format here. So great. It sounds like we can definitely help you out, not only free up more of your staff time, but also book more consultations for you. We do this in a two-step process. So first, you're doing webinars. So we're going to make sure we get as many people on that webinar as possible. And like you said, you're only getting about 10% show rate on those webinars. And typically we get about a 25 to 30% show rate. So immediately more people are going to see your message. See how I'm relating it back to information that I may have received earlier when I was asking those questions. Then I'll say, I've trained my call agents to have real conversations with people. So it's not like a robocall, but most people, when they get a number, when they answer a number from an area code, they don't know who it is. They may be just expecting a sales call and not wanting to speak to our people. And that's why we immediately do a icebreaker question. So I'm kind of giving them a little bit of information here in terms of the process that we go through. And this is based on some of the objections that I often have received. So as you're developing your sales script, you want to think about what objections you typically have, and you want to eliminate those objections right here in the sales script itself so that you don't get those objections later. So during the presentation, speak to the objections that you've had already. And then I always tell a story. In fact, our first doctor we worked with, Dr. Minnie Malhotra with Anchor Wellness in Houston, was struggling to getting all of the phone calls completed for her webinars. And then I go in and, she was only getting 10% of the people, and now we're getting 30% of the people attending the webinar. If you have 53 people attending those webinars, then 14 people are booking those calls, and we're getting more appointments. And so that basically I'm just showing what the potential is based on a story of a current client. So this is really critical when you are doing the sales presentation to relate it back to them with a story. So I might actually choose a different story from a different client based on what the problem is with this particular prospect. All right. So you definitely need to have several different stories lined up based on who that prospect is. You have an appropriate story. So then they can go, oh yeah, that sounds just like me, which is the piece that you want. So then you can always ask this critical question. So how does that all sound? And this is what I would call a pre-closing question, just to kind of get their temperature, to see how warm they are to actually making the sale or buying. And if they're like, I'm not quite sure about that, blah, 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 then I can go back in and speak to what some of their concerns are. So this is kind of before objections might happen. And then you can always say, what would it mean to you if you could have more bookings of discovery calls and the clients that you want? And you want to relate this back to the goal that they told you earlier. That's why you asked that question. How many do you want? Why is that a problem? All of that. And you go, what would it mean to you if you had 20 bookings a month? Oh my gosh, that would be great. It was, oh, great. Well, it sounds like you, and this is a closing and asking for the sale. The last part, my favorite. So great. It sounds like you would be a perfect fit. And like you said, you want to book more appointments and help more people, right? Get them to agree that they do want to take the next step and that they do want to get out of the pain that they're in. And then you just go into, well, the next step is to give me a deposit of $200. I can take that at credit card. Do you prefer MasterCard or Visa? Or the next step is you'll have a conversation with so-and-so and all that. And that's just closing the sale. You have to think about where you are in the sales process, because if this isn't actually closing a firm dollar amount sale, then you want to take them to the next step. So you're closing the next step. Maybe the next step is a first appointment with labs. And so that might be a $500 appointment. Well, great. Sounds like you'd be a perfect fit for our program. The next step is to schedule those labs so that we can understand exactly what's going on and put together, kind of figure out the puzzle of your body and what's going on. That lab test is just $500, and we can take care of that now with a MasterCard or Visa. Which would you prefer? And boom, you're closing the sale just like that. And that's my sales script process for taking a prospect through a sales presentation to get them to ultimately purchase the program. And it's not that I'm getting them to buy it. I'm actually opening it up so that they can purchase the program directly from us. And they feel really great about it because we're solving the problem. We're showing them the potential of where they want to go. And it is really that easy. Now, the problem that a lot of salespeople get into is that they come up with a sales script at first, or they hire me to put together a sales script for them, and then they don't follow it. And then they go, well, the sales script isn't working. Well, are you following the script? And it's not word for word that you have to do it, but there is a step-by-step process to go through and making sure that you are hitting all of the elements of that sales script. I'd love to get your comments on this, so just put those down below in the comments section. And actually, I put a link down below so that you can get some of my sales scripts that I put together for warming up cold calls and things like that. So if you'd like to get that, just use the link down below, grab those scripts, and I can't wait to hear from you and how they are working for you. So until next time, have a great day.